Hello Year 9. This is a video that's going to give you a quick example to demonstrate today's matching activity that I want you to do. It does follow along from yesterday's gradient work, so you need to make sure that you've done that first of all before you attempt this. And you can also find this at the end of the PowerPoint I'm going to give you as well, with some other examples to help you along as well. So to start you off, this is a real-life graph. It's a straight line graph that links together the time that you spend on a phone call in minutes down here with the cost of that phone call up the side there. And there's some questions down here. I'm going to go through them and that will help you figure out how to do the matching. So to start with, how much does it cost to make a phone call that lasts for 200 minutes? Well, that's just a matter of looking for where 200 minutes is on the timescale, and it's down there. So if we look up onto our picture from 200, you can look across, and at that point there on the pence scale, it looks as if it's 120 because it looks like it goes up in tens from 100 to 150. So the first one, that's 120 pence. Okay, the minimum charge to make a phone call, the minimum charge for that is where your time is at its lowest, okay, when you've got 0 minutes and you first start the call. So you go right to the beginning of the graph, 0 minutes gives you a cost of 50 pence. Okay. And it's quite an important feature of the graph, that value at the start, because it gives you, in this case, it represents the initial charge that you've got, okay? As soon as you pick up the phone and you've had no minutes, you've still got this initial cost, okay? So always look for this number at the beginning on the y-axis because it tells you the initial value of the graph. Okay, it's what everything starts at. Okay, how long does it take? How much does it cost? Sorry, to make a phone call for 10 minutes. Well, I can do that the same way that I did the first question. I can find 10 minutes on that scale, and from 0 to 50, it looks like 10 goes here. But I can't quite tell where that is exactly on the pence scale if I look across, because it's not on a nice position. So I think the best thing to do is to use the hint that's down here and work out the gradient, because the gradient, the steepness of the graph, tells you the relationship between the time and the cost, okay, about how things change. So we're going to do that like yesterday. We need 2 nice points to work out the gradient. The first easy point to look at is this one, because that's on a corner. And if you go along the next one, there's quite a few of them, but you can look across. I think this is the nice one. It's often quite easy to pick them far apart because then it's much less messy. So there's my 2 points. I'm going to work out the gradient between those. I need to put on the rise of the graph, which I'm going to put down the side here. Okay, that's the rise. And the run will go along the bottom. Okay, the run goes there. Okay, so how much are these values then? So what's the rise? Well, it's 7 squares tall, looks like 7 squares. And if each square is 10 pence, then it looks like that's 70p. And for the run, it's easy to look along the bottom there. I can look along the axis. It starts at 0, it ends at 200, so it's 200 minutes. Then the gradient that we were working out yesterday is what you get when you divide these numbers. Okay, so I can put these numbers in. 70 is the rise, 200 is the run. And then I think with this fraction, the best thing to do with it is to cancel it down. I'm going to divide them both by 10 to make an equivalent fraction. And then because we've got things in pence and we're looking at money, I think it would help to have the decimal version of that. And if you divide 7 by 20, you get 0.35. Okay, so what this represents, this is the gradient of my line graph. What it represents is it represents the rate of the charge that it is, and that's the rate per minute. Because if you think about a short version of this graph, if you shorten it, then that tells you that if you have 1 minute of time, then the gradient tells you what the charge is for every minute of time. So it's 0.35 pence per minute. So I can use that to my advantage, and I can work out the cost for any amount of time. And if we've got 10 minutes, then it just means we've got to multiply this value by 10. So in 10 minutes of time, it's going to cost you 3.5 pence. But that's 3.5 pence extra on top of the 50 that you were charged at the beginning. So this is the increase in the charge, but it started at 50, so actually the cost is 53.5 pence. Okay, so this gradient is very powerful because it tells you about the rate. It tells you about how one of the values changes when you change the other value. Okay, gives you that rate. Okay, so what I want you to do, there's a bunch of these real-life graphs, and I want you to match them up to their descriptions. And that will all be attached on Show My Homework. And can you please submit a screenshot like normal onto Show My Homework, please? Okay, thank you very much.